The Premier League is on the way, and it's about time we predicted who wins the title, who finishes in the top four, and even who finishes in the relegation places. We also review or preview individual performances to look out for in this episode. My name is Religation, and this is the Nutmeg on Guardian TV. And where better to start from than the title race, and that's pretty much the simplest question to answer going into the season. I think it's still going to be at the Etihad Stadium. Manchester City will retain their title. It does sound awkward that they'll be retaining the title the sixth in and the fifth in the sixth in 7 seasons. Yeah, if you like. Some will tell you the sixth in 8. But I think they are pretty much the ones to retain the title. And the top 4 is where it gets more interesting about predictions. Manchester United, for me, will finish in 2nd place. And that's because you can see they recruited sufficiently than Arsenal. And Ten Hag is building the Red Army into what it used to be like. You can sense, even rival managers can tell that Manchester United are getting back their mojo. And I think it continues with Eric Ten Hag. I only think the reason why Manchester United would not challenge Manchester City down to the end would be because they didn't get a top striker. I don't think Rasmus Højlund is the striker to give them the goals to challenge City. And then Arsenal, they'll drop a place. I think they finished 3rd. That's because I don't think they've really improved significantly despite the transfer that they've made. I may be wrong, don't get me wrong, but I think that Arsenal will finish 3rd. It'll be successful if Arteta can give them a title, a trophy, whichever way it is. Already they've won the Community Shield, but that's not a major trophy. I'm talking about probably the Premier League, the Champions League, or the FA Cup, or the Carabao Cup. But it's quite difficult to predict which one Arsenal takes. But Arteta is building a team that could sustain themselves in the top 4 for seasons to come. And then to predict the 4th person on that list is probably the most difficult. But I think I go with Liverpool if they can get some defensive reinforcements. In defensive midfield, they've lost Jordan Henderson, they've lost Fabinho. Both have gone to Saudi Arabia, and they lost Gini Wijnaldum some seasons ago, and I don't think that they have replaced him. I think he does need a replacement, but they brought Alexis McAllister. There's also Szoboszlai from Leipzig. Let's see what they can do. How about the relegation places? It's quite easy to predict, and the first candidate for me is Wolverhampton Wanderers, because it's quite difficult seeing that they have just let Julian Lopetegui leave, and then they've allowed Gary O'Neill, who was sacked by Bournemouth, despite helping them qualify and stay atop the flight in the Premier League. It's quite difficult to see that they've done that. I don't understand the recruitment. I don't understand how you don't recruit for a top manager like Julian Lopetegui and you let him go. But anyways, the 2 other candidates for me is quite easier to predict, and that is Luton Town and Sheffield United. I think those 2 go back to the Championship because Luton Town, for instance, have not spent that much, £14 million and under. They've spent to recruit about 6 players. They've got 2 transfers free. That's Ross Barkley, one of them free transfers. But I think they've not recruited sufficiently. I think if you want to thrive in a league like the Premier League, the most competitive league in the world, you definitely have to spend the money. And who finishes as top scorer? None other than Erling Braut Haaland. I do not think anybody can match his feat. I think he only grew from strength to strength. Maybe not with the numbers that he had, because, hey, the Premier League is quite competitive, and people, defenders, coaches, rivals, they watch you and they study you to know how to tame you. And I think they'll tame in a bit, but Erling Haaland is a robot. He'll score a lot of goals too. The best player of the season for me, a couple of names. I don't know which you would like to go for. I would go for Bruno Fernandes, but then there's Mohamed Salah on that list. Kevin De Bruyne is on that list as well. I think those 3 will be the standout players going into the season. How about the young players to watch out for? Alejandro Garnacho definitely is one of them names, and so is Josko Gvardiol. A new season for him, and there's a new team with Pep Guardiola, who he says he wants to play for. I think the 20-year-old defender will prove himself in the Premier League this season. There's Bukayo Saka. Oh, well, I think he will definitely continue doing what he knows how to do best. Bukayo Saka makes Arsenal tick. I think he's the most important player for them in attack. He's still very young, and I think he could be one of the young players to watch out for this season. Mykhailo Modric, I think he's improved in pre-season. I don't think he might not still, it's quite difficult to judge Mudryk because it's a 100 million signing, but he's a young player who's got great potential. I rate him, and I think he'll do very well. And then there's Rasmus Højlund. Definitely, I've watched a lot of this guy. The numbers do not convince you, but I think that Rasmus Højlund will definitely surprise many. Manchester United are a team that creates loads of chances, begging for a decent striker, at least to convert these chances. And I think Rasmus Højlund, a young star, we shouldn't allow a lot of pressure on him, but I think he will score a fair share of goals. And to the coaches of the season, that should be none other than the Baldies. Probably it's the season for the Baldies, Pep Guardiola and Erik ten Hag. It'll be interesting to see how these two fare. If they go up against each other, Manchester United, Manchester City, it'll be interesting to see. I think that's the title race to watch out for this season. But one other coach is Unai Emery, and that's because the Aston Villa boss, his signings have been fantastic. I think he's also helped them to place in Europe Conference League. They've made some fantastic signings. They have good players as well. Unai Emery is building something special. People don't underrate that.